Rene is located in Tallahassee, Florida. So it's a little later in Florida than it is here. So he just put his kids to bed, and he's going to be joining us. Rene also is an adjunct faculty member of Flagler College, and that's located in Tallahassee, I'm assuming. And then he started out, when he first started here, he was working at a bank, and now he's opened his own practice. But I'm going to let him take over and talk about what technology decisions by business owners, and it's going to come from his perspective, and it's a financial planning business is what he's going to be talking about. So with that, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Rene. And Rene, all you have to do is hit the talk button to talk.
Oh, hey, thank you, Cindy. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Well, thank you. And I love working with Cindy. She was, I would say, the tipping point for me for joining Cal Lutheran. My considerations were, of course, going local with either Florida State or University of Florida. And once I got to talk with her and how welcoming she was and positive she was, it tipped me in favor of California Lutheran, and I've never looked back. It's one of the best decisions I made for higher education, going with Cal Lutheran. So I know you guys are working hard, and I know how it is and what you're going through, and I encourage you to keep going. I think you made a great choice with Cal Lutheran, and it's a great school with a great reputation, especially in the financial services industry. Florida State University and University of Florida, in my opinion, while being great schools, have nothing compared to Cal Lutheran in terms of the type of program that Cal Lutheran offers, or especially that I could have gotten with the type of information and emphasis that I got, especially to allow me to sit for the CFP and to get the concentration in finance. And that has helped me tremendously in my career. So Cal Lutheran is definitely one of the best in the field. So there's the sales pitch. And clearly you guys have already been sold on it. But nonetheless, I do want to also tell you, as an alumni, it has benefited me tremendously because, as Cindy knows, I've reached out to the school a couple of times while I was at my previous employer, just looking for ideas, especially when my business partner and I were considering going out on our own, starting our own company. You're kind of bouncing ideas back and forth with Gary Starn, a couple of other people. Let's see, one of the law faculty, because we needed some legal ideas looked at, or actually legal aspects looked at, and those connections were indispensable to us. And they really helped guide us in the right direction, and of course, some of my classmates. And we text and talk to this day. And so, of course, from that aspect, that really helped, in my opinion, for me, garner this whole aspect of building a business, growing a business, especially in financial services. So where I was when I was a student, I was a financial advisor at a bank, at a community bank here, and then where I am now, I'm the president of Rene Bruer Advisors, and it's something that I'm very proud of, very excited about. We've now had our firm for 2 years, so it's been a fun ride. It was definitely bumpy in the beginning, but you learn a lot when you have your own firm, And while it's great to have the title president, I'm also the chief technology officer, the chief janitor, chief security, meaning I get to reach out to the alarm company when that goes off. My business partner also has a nice title as well, but he gets to deal with the pest control company and so on. So that's the fun part of it. But tonight I want to talk to you about specifically technology. And it's so important in our field because it deals with all your client information. It helps you run your company. And if you have the right technology, it can make your life very easy. If you have the wrong technology, it can make your life very difficult. And if any of you have had experience on either end, you know what I'm talking about. Where do you start? Well, first of all, we're very process driven in our business. And when we look at the different technologies that we take on, whatever that they may be, we determine our needs. What we'll be talking about tonight specifically is related more on CRM, planning, billing. That is something that our firm decided to get an all-in-one package. We had all of those in separate formats before, but after a while, when you're sitting at your desk and you're running 5 separate applications, it really gets tiring. And so we wanted kind of a single sign-on type of environment. So what we wanted to do was look at our, look at the landscape and really figure out, all right, what's the easiest to use, where we don't want to at any point jeopardize security. We don't want to have a single point of failure at the same time, but we also want to have easy use. So what are our needs? That's ultimately what's the process there. What do we need? How are we going to use it? What machines are we going to use it? Who's going to use it? What's our capacity? I'm not an IT guy. My business partner is not an IT guy. People on our team are not IT people. We're pretty good with computers, but no one has that expertise. My brother-in-law is a cybersecurity officer in the Marine Corps. He was a good resource to have. So we reached out to him with helping us do some research, and he did it for, a 6-pack, which is great. And so we get them for cheap. But someone else might have to dig a little bit deeper and reach out maybe possibly to a consultant, but there's enough research on the web out there, or at least industry connections, that might be able to help you if you are budget constrained. So if you know your team's capacity or lack thereof, go from that perspective when you're looking for what your technology is. Money. There is such a variety when you're looking at this system of CRM, planning, billing, all in one. You're looking at things that range from $5,000 a year, and that was our quoted based on our use. So, of course, it's going to vary depending on the size of your firm, but for our firm, to keep things apples to apples, $5,000 going all the way to $50,000. And so, you have to look at your budget and say, all right, what is going to be most fitting? You also get what you pay for at the same time. And we firmly believe that the cheapest, of course, is something that you have to be very conscious of. The most expensive doesn't mean that you're getting the best either. So what's in the middle? One of the best places that we found to turn to, and especially if you don't have the capacity of having an IT background, or you don't have that, or you don't have those connections within the IT industry, is turn to your custodian. Most RIAs, like us, for example, if you're dealing with an independent broker-dealer, they have a list of technology companies that they recommend. Their technology teams have done that research. They have cybersecurity teams. They have technology due diligence teams that do all of that research. Who do they recommend? Why do they recommend those companies? And how do they integrate with the companies that they recommend? Even though they might, like in our case, we use TD Ameritrade. TD Ameritrade recommends a number of providers. Some of them they integrate with better than others. And so when we called TD Ameritrade, they went down the list with us and said, here are the more costly ones. Here's what you get from them. Here's the cheapest one. Here's what you get from them. Here's the ones that we're best integrated with, and so on and so forth. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Yes.
Sorry, Rene, Nathan here.
Yeah.
Nathan here. So the software that you have, is that primarily I think we called it in this class, they call it SaaS. It's software as a subscription. Is that sort of the Ameritrade model, and is that your core software solution for your company, that you use Ameritrade, and that's what you pay $5,000 a year for?
So no, I was just using the $5,000 to $50,000 kind of, and no kidding, that is a range that we were quoted. TD Ameritrade is the custodian. So of course you have Charles Schwab, Fidelity, and so on. If you go on TD Ameritrade's website, for example, on the institutional side, they have their resources, and they have a variety of resources, all the way from legal to technology to all these different. On the technology side, they provide these different companies, like you said, what did you call them? The subscription services? Is that what you call them? Okay. And so basically, yes, we use that as subscription. They are. And the one that we chose is called Advizon, ADVYZON. They go by another name. I think it's like YHL Soft or YHL Software or something like that. They have a DBA. That was a recommended software. There's one of the bigger ones is Orion. You have Black Diamond. You have a couple of others. So those are the subscription services that we have. I'm not familiar. I mean, I've heard, of course, of SAS, but that's not one that we looked at. We looked at the Black Diamond. We were users of Orion. It was just not meeting our needs. It's not the direction we want to go. Salesforce is one that's very popular. Salesforce, I know, has a cult following, but it does a whole bunch of things that we did not want or need to use. It was going to take us in a direction that, frankly, we just didn't want to go in. Any other questions? Okay. So now you go to the you figure out what your recommended platform is, right? Be it Black Diamond, Vison, Orion, whichever one. Now what? From our experience, and from whomever that you're using, whether you're looking for technology, whether you're looking for asset management, whether you're looking for, your local company that's going to provide you IT services, just doing your computers and printing and whatever. We do not want to have a vendor. We are looking for a partner in our business. And there is a distinction. When we were with our last employer, it's the largest employer in our area. It's a publicly traded company that's been around for a long time. And what we found is that anyone that they did business with, the vendors, they treated as such. So they would always beat them down on price. Their relationships were always revolving. It was a revolving door. There was a lot of hurt feelings all the time. They thought that the value was strictly in the saved dollar, not in where that relationship could go in terms of developing their business, not just in the dollar saved. And so, I do a lot of reading. I've worked in other places, and I've really found the benefit and seen the benefit of when you're working with others, even those that you're paying, treat them as a partner in your business. And they will give you so much more out of that relationship than if you just constantly beat them down and treat them as a vendor. So that's something that I would definitely like to pass along to you guys from my experience. When you're going through this, of course, select 2 to 3 providers that you want to contact for an introduction. So like I said, in our case, we contacted, and one I forgot to mention that we looked at seriously was Morningstar Advisor or Morningstar Office. That's a very big player, and they're even getting bigger. And there's a lot of research that comes with Morningstar. It was a competitive platform, well priced. We went and test drove basically Morningstar, Vison, we knew the Orion platform, and we of course spoke with their representatives, did the demo. We watched their demo that they did with us, and then we did a 2-week trial. We also asked, normally they give you a 2-week trial. We asked for about a 3-week trial because we wanted to really give it a longer test, and they were fine. Questions to ask when you're with them. How do they secure their data? Especially when the data is at rest, because the data is linked. So your client data, as you guys can imagine, is probably a hacker's dream. Social security numbers, dates of birth, addresses, everything that you can imagine. So how is that data protected? And of course, data in transit. Data is coming, account numbers. Let's not forget that. And then data is also going between the custodian, in our case, TD Ameritrade and that firm. So how is that protected? How is that all being taken care of? Whose servers do they use? A lot of companies, well, and especially the big ones, will either use their own servers. Smaller ones will use, from what we found out, Amazon servers or Google. And those, come to find out, are pretty safe. I know that there's a lot of debate, whether they are prone to being open to government inspection and so on. I think there's a lot of sensationalism about that. That's my personal opinion. The agreements that these companies sign between Amazon and that whole service network is much different than what you're reading about in the news. But from what I've seen, a lot of companies use Amazon and their server capability to store that data is very reliable. Companies like Dropbox use Amazon. A number of big cloud providers use it. And then, of course, you get to a whole debate. And that's what we found out was with Morningstar versus Advizon. Morningstar wanted you to download their system on each and every device that you have. However, Advizon is cloud-based, and Morningstar was going towards the cloud, but they were indicating an 18-month timeline. That was about 3 or 4 months ago. Anytime, by the way, from our experience, when someone tells you, let's say 18-month timeline, tack on an extra 6 months to a year. Exactly. Thank you. He needs 5 years. That's absolutely true. So that we've had those promises made in the past. So we'd rather see it here and now. And so when we were test driving the Morningstar, and we had to download it onto our devices, it slowed things down. It was very clunky. And when we tried the Advizon, and it was cloud-based, it was very fast, very easy. Of course, it was very easy to use, simply because of the different interface. So there was a lot more appeal. What was interesting about the two, can use mobile on cloud too, exactly. That was the other aspect. We test drove most of that Advizon on our iPad versus the Morningstar we had to do on our devices, on our laptop. And as you can imagine, that was a tremendous nod towards Advizon. What was interesting is what we found out, the Advizon team had come from Morningstar. The founder was the actual creator of the Morningstar Advisors whole division. So he actually took that entire coding team and design team to start his own company. I'm looking at the name. I forgot the name. So that spoke volumes in that sense. Now, that did bring something up, because if the data shared with anyone else, what third parties are involved? Coders. You will find that a lot of these companies will use coders in foreign countries, and be it in India or China. Coders, of course, they'll learn that code language, and that can, of course, be learned anywhere. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the coders have access to your client data. They're building out that system, but the Morningstar, it was the same coding team for Morningstar as it is for Advison. And so, it's something that you have to understand that the risk is potentially there. And you have to wrap your mind around it, and the same goes for Amazon and the same goes for Google. So it's out there. PC and Mac compatible, and of course mobile friendly. So once we made our decision, anything that's cloud-based is going to be PC or Mac compatible. If it's device-based, you have to ask the question, is it PC or Mac compatible, depending on what it's running. And you might be running a PC-based environment, but at some point, you as a company, for whatever reason, might decide to go to Mac, or vice versa. And for whatever reason, you might want it for aesthetics, you might want it for integration, you might want it for security. Leave your options open. And especially, of course, with mobile friendly, I can run my whole operation off my iPad, which is pretty crazy. Any questions up to this? Yes.
Do you ever, hi Rene, it's Keith. Do you ever run into any problems with your the cloud being down? I mean, sometimes the internet does go down, no matter where you're at in this country. So, have you ever been in a situation where you couldn't get into your cloud and you have pull-ups reports or something for your customers or clients? Have you ever run into that? And what did you do?
So far, we have not. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So far, we have not had any of those problems. And that was something that we asked, because you can actually get that data from the company, how much downtime, have you had. And that's also one of the questions why we asked, where do you store your data, or which servers do you run off of, especially if they're on Amazon servers. Amazon, I know, has like 99.999% dependency rate, so basically their servers are never down, or that there's never a data loss. That's another thing. So that's one thing, and I'll answer the question here about Advison. Then in terms of, so you can get the information how much that they've been down. They have to disclose you. We haven't had anything down, but Advison's been around, I think, for about five years, I believe. We've only been with them for a couple of months. I can't speak to their pricing model, frankly, off the top of my head, because the way that they price it, it's actually one thing we liked about it. It's only priced, and a lot of companies are going this direction, by the amount of accounts that you have versus the amount of users. It used to be how many users are in your company, and then they would price it that way. Well, now what we're seeing, like we saw with Morningstar and Advison, is they don't care how many users you have. They just want to know how many accounts that you have to do. So that was a nice reprieve, because when we looked at it last year, that wasn't the case, at least with Morningstar. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, all right. I think the question about the attorney, I believe that's on the next slide. I'll answer your question right now, and if it comes up again. Yes, so just as a quick overview, and Cindy knows this very well, we do have a corporate lawyer on retainer, and the reason for that is A, it's good business. B, when we left our old employer, we were the second largest producers, and since we left to go independent, we were the only ones they ever sued. And so we lawyered up a course immediately to ward off that lawsuit, and that was a 9-month battle. And that was bad. Part of my history was I was in the Marines. I was a combat Marine. I was in infantry. All that good stuff. That's a whole different ballgame than compared to dealing with a lawsuit. A lawsuit is not for the weak. The reason we got sued was because we went independent. We had other colleagues who went to bigger firms, and they didn't want to tango with those bigger firms. And because, when someone goes to Wells Fargo, Raymond James, Merrill Lynch, they're not going to play with those people. So that simplifies you as well. We did not sign a non-compete, and so that was a good thing. We had lawyers look at all of our stuff before. We followed the broker-dealer protocol. It's just that they pulled a fast one, and they pursued us in local court against FINRA rules, and FINRA caught wind of it, and that's all under FINRA investigation. All of our stuff was mediated, and it turned out very favorably, but they get to deal with FINRA now, and that's on them. So it was very lame, but what they wanted to do was basically, just put us out of business and lead us dry since we went independent, and of course it did not work, because we had an awesome lawyer who knew their stuff and was not going to back down, and of course we maintained that legal relationship. That lawyer, occasionally reviews documents for us and helped us with this. Contract. It's a very small contract. When we signed our advise-on contract, it's a paragraph long. And one thing we learned from our lawyer is, if you don't have to commit to a contract with anybody, don't. And if it works in your favor that you don't have to commit, don't commit. The shorter the contract, the better. And if you can understand it, the easier the better, or the easier, the better it is. So the advise-on contract is very, very easy to understand. It's a 1-year commitment, and it just renews after that 1 year. So yes, that's a little bit of our legal background. So as you can imagine, you become very sensitive to legal things. In our case, once you've been through, at one time we had 3 cases happening at the same time because we also countersued. So yes, you can make your lawyer your client. Amen to that. And actually, we were so bold that during our mediation proceedings, we asked the mediator who their advisor was. They thought that was hilarious. So did not have to go in front of our lawyer went in front of the judge, but the judge was pretty lame. So they called him Cranky Hanky. So there's that part. Whenever you call the judge cranky, that's never fun. We're done with all of ours, but arbitration and all that, we don't have to worry about it anymore. But I recommend that if anyone does look to break away, of course, talk to a lawyer. You know what the precedent is. A lot of things have changed in FINRA. Due to our case and a couple of other cases, FINRA has really clamped down on a lot of firms that have violated the rule that was violated against us. And so, I mean, they really clamped down hard and sent their investigation teams, and FINRA is going to make a lot of money off of our old employer because of that rule violation. But, of course, we don't see a penny of that. But hopefully it'll benefit others down the road. So, any other questions? Yeah.
I know this is more of a tech-based presentation, but I had a question on how you chose your custodian. I just was at the Schwab conference, and I felt like every RIA in the country is part of Schwab. What did you like over TD? Is it more a local-based company, or is there things that you like over Fidelity or Schwab?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. The custodian relationship is, when you're an RIA, is it's your number one most important partnership, period, because they're the ones that hold your client's money. So that's the number one relationship that you have to choose first. Everything else that naturally is secondary to that. We're the only TD Ameritrade office in our area. I mean, the only TD Ameritrade institutional office. There is no TD Ameritrade branch here. There's no TD Bank office here. And we didn't. That wasn't the reason we did that. We liked TD Ameritrade because of their technology. They're very technology-centric. They have no proprietary products, and they don't compete against their own advisors. Whereas we felt that Charles Schwab manufactures their own funds and stuff like that, and there was competition against their own advisors. Fidelity, when we were at our old bank, they had a broker-dealer, and Fidelity definitely competes against you when you use them. They have some very advanced things as a custodian, but they also lag heavily in technology. So we definitely did not want to go the Fidelity route. I think is there another question?
Yeah, so Rene, you had mentioned earlier in the previous slide that the vendor relationship, you should see them as a partner.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good piece of advice. How has your partnership with Advison, in a partnership? Are you providing direct feedback into the interface and providing suggestions like feature requests? Hey, we'd like to see more of this, less of that. How would you describe the relationship being a partnership with Advison?
Absolutely, and that was one of the other reasons, or that was one of the reasons that we went with Advison. And I'll get to it in this slide here. They seek your input, and they act on it. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because I logged into Advison today and really didn't let me go far because I had to watch a 9-minute video on their latest upgrade that they did, whatever 2.2.1 version or whatever. And they always ask for input as to what can be done better, and they're very responsive to that. And there's other things that, of course, are always changing, such as aggregation from other things. Like, for example, when your client has a 401k account that's held outside of your management, and they aggregate that, well, yeah, they can. So they're looking at a relationship with buy all accounts that should be getting finalized here in the next 2 weeks. So that's something that they've listened to and have acted on. So that's that partnership that you want. They're disciplined enough in their own they know what's in their own wheelhouse, but at the same time, that they know where they need to develop and grow. They're willing to grow with you. And frankly, we don't ask much of them, and the other advisors don't either. So yeah. So when we found out about Morningstar and when we narrowed it down to Morningstar and Advizon, we asked both of those companies to provide us with references of RIAs that were our size and bigger. Not mega big, but big. Big enough to where, maybe firms that were double our asset size. And we wanted about 5 references, 5 or 6 references per company. So we got 5 or 6 references from each. And that was probably the best test drive, input, research, whatever you want to call it, that we did. Because that's when you got the ground truth about the product. And the questions we asked was, of course, do you like the product? Is it meeting your needs? Especially as you grow, is it intuitive? Is support adequate? How many relationship managers are you on? The transition, from whoever they were with before to whether it's Advizon or Morningstar, and how's the day-to-day. One big one, one very, very big thing, especially when you're RIA, is billing. How you get paid, and you need to make sure that billing is done very accurately, and also that it doesn't take all day or it doesn't take multiple days. And so when we called the Morningstar people, and when we called for the advisors or the firms that use Morningstar, and the firms that use Advizon, we had all of this feedback. Well, the neat thing was we made a bunch of new friends in the industry. So that was neat. We got to talking about a number of different things, not just those software. We said those firms were like, oh, hey, that's really neat. Who are you guys using for compliance? What are you guys using for, who's your custodian? One firm was at Charles Schwab and was looking at TD Ameritrade, and they had questions that they want to ask us about TD Ameritrade. So, we exchanged phone numbers. They had questions that they later called us about. So it was really actually a good networking opportunity with firms, that clearly wanted to help us, and equally we wanted to help them. There was also some short discourse about the fiduciary rule, a whole bunch of other stuff. But the focal point, of course, was, what's their experience. And one thing people will never shy to tell you is, how do they feel about their user experience? Where do they feel that it's helped them? Where do they feel that it's clunky? And what do they feel about the service? And also, they will outright ask you, especially in the case of the Morningstar users, they'll say, hey, do you do a lot of research? Or, do you only use a couple of funds? And if you do, they will outright tell you, don't spend the extra money on here, go to Advizon. And so when you get that ground truth, it's really, really nice to get that from colleagues in the industry. So, yeah. I think I'm missing some questions here on the sideline.
Okay, I'll put in the questions. Let's see here. Let me move up. So James Mitchell wrote, were they local for example, potential competitors. And then Nathan added, good question, James. I would wonder about the willingness to share info with a potential competing financial advisement firm. You want to address that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. None of them were local. What you're going to find really interesting about our area, which just floored us, the competitive research that we did going into the RIA space about this area, Tallahassee is the capital of Florida. Clearly, we have the ability to, help swing elections and do a whole bunch of stuff around the country. But the capital of Florida, my dear city, my little firm is the largest RIA and one of the only. And it floors me. It absolutely floors me. And it's sad, frankly. So with that said, it's great ground for us to grow and develop. The area is pretty much owned by broker-dealers and wirehouses. And, it's an old mentality. But, that is, it is what it is. Atlanta is 4.5 hours from us. Jacksonville, Florida is 3 hours. Orlando and Tampa are about 4 hours. And so, that's our competitive landscape. So all these firms that we called, they did not feel threatened by us at all. We were calling Atlanta, Texas. We were calling Atlanta. We were calling Austin, Texas, Miami. They were like, oh, Tallahassee. Oh, a bunch of rednecks up there. Whatever. So that was, yeah. And like you're saying, if you're living in San Francisco, there's hundreds, and probably 36 of them are billion-dollar firms. So that's, yeah. So definitely, we look forward to the opportunity to grow in this space, and there's lots of opportunities. How much time? I'll tell you, as much time as we needed, and we do not skimp on. We had a deadline. Okay, so that's a good point. This is a project. I'm very project minded, especially you go through your MBA and you learn about project management and operations management and all of that. And so, I'm type A, and so is my business partner. So that doesn't work out very well for the people that work for us. But hey, reinforcing the work for us. But we have a great thing going. We really do. But in all seriousness, we set a start and end date. And what you find is you have to be dynamic. In this process, we gave ourselves about a month from when we started researching the software, test driving it, calling these firms, waiting for them to call us back, waiting for our attorney, doing all that stuff. So it was about a month long. I will tell you the conversion from the multiple services to advise on was probably one of the best things that we did, because we are in the growth mode, and as we onboard new associates, it's much easier to track what people are using, what's getting, from a compliance and safety perspective. And number one. Number two, it's much easier to use. I think it's for new colleagues that we onboard, that you say, hey, you have one-stop place, where you can do your CRM, has financial planning software built in. You see all your clients' information in terms of their account performance, their holdings, all of that, all in one. What I'm always afraid of is, and I'll answer the question, the average time to get new user up to speed. What I'm always afraid of is, points of failure, especially a single point of failure. I've noticed that it seems to me that I have more points of failure if I have 3 or 4 disparate places that I have to go to than if I have the one, which is just really interesting to me. I like redundancy, but it seems like the more redundancies I have, the worse it is. So it's having the opposite effect now. The average time to get a new user up to speed is it's amazing, with these softwares and especially with the tutorials. I don't know, if anyone here used eMoney? If you want to raise your hand, or however you want to acknowledge. Yeah, if you're using eMoney, especially back in the day, I think still it's clunky. I used to have eMoney University, and he told me once, we have 452 videos that you can watch. I'm like, I don't want to watch 452 videos. For what? That's not how this is supposed to work, especially with technology. That was one of the appealing factors with this. A user can basically get on and figure it out on their own in about 15 minutes, because that was our experience when we test drove it. When we did the when we did the Morningstar Advisor tutorial, or when they did it, when Morningstar did it, great person that did it, but she was all over the map, and she was very succinct and all of that, but it was an hour and a half long conference call. When the Advizon guy did it, he was on the phone for 20 minutes. And we're like, that's it? He's like, no, that's it. And then when he turned it over to us, I mean, we had it down pat within minutes. So that translated to us to usability. When we got onto Morningstar Advisor, it was like, I didn't even know where to begin. So, the way I look at it is, Marine infantry guy, if I can use it, anyone can use it. So, yeah, going back to that legal question, always ask to see the contract in advance. Even if your heart is set on it, always be ready to walk away if there's something you don't like. Make sure you understand it. The time commitment should be for no more than 1 week. Talk with the lawyer. Ask the company point blank that should you decide to move from them, how easy is it to transition the data? That's something that Cindy wanted me specifically to address, and rightfully so. The data comes in various formats, CSV, there's other formats I'm not familiar with, but most companies will transition formats very easily. Like, we move data from Redtail, if anyone's familiar with that, to Advizon. We moved from one other company called Wealthbox to Redtail, and so on. And nowadays it's done easily. Another thing is, in all cases, the incumbent firm takes care of all of it. We didn't have to ever use an intermediary. We had data once that got lost. It was all of our notes, and it was in the middle of our legal proceedings with our client notes that we needed for our lawyer. And when we were leaving a CRM called Wealthbox to go to Redtail, and I mean, it was like the blood rushed out of my head. Luckily, I just called Wealthbox, and they were able to, within about 72 hours, find everything. We got it to Redtail, but that, you know, that was that scared me a little bit. But otherwise, all of our notes converted and everything to the new advisor. Can I talk ROI? What do you mean by that?
So Rene, Nathan here. So, you know, this sounds great. I mean, I can sense this enthusiasm in you with this new product, Advise-On, as I'm going through, you know, some of their web pages. It looks really sleek, and it looks like it's got everything you need from client billing to printing out reports and client management, planning, and various other things. And from what you've described, it seems like for, you know, a entrepreneur looking for a solution that will make life easier, you know, rather than having multiple different things and wasting your time, instead of spending time with the client where the money's at. I want to know, did you guys have some kind of measurement stick that you could say, hey, look, you know, we want to be able to save this amount of time with this solution so that we can spend more time with our clients? And how have you seen that translate with your decision to move to Advise-On?
Yeah, phenomenal question. I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to be a business decision. You know, I'm not doing it for the aesthetic. And while I love my computers, and my wife will tell you, you know, anytime Apple comes up with something new, it's like, all right, you know, she'll put something in my food, and I'll, you know, pass out, you know, wake up 3 days later, wonder what happened, because, you know, I just want to go out there and go get it. But it has to be a business decision. So just to give you a brief background, when I told you when we went independent, one of the steps that we took, we ended up hiring what's called a corporate RIA. So I don't know how many of you guys are in the greater LA area, or I guess Ventura County and all that. Okay, so New York, Orange County. All right. Yeah, where's TO? Northern Cali. Okay.
Thousand Oaks here.
Okay, all right. Sorry, forget the lingo. I apologize. Hey, all right, Santa Barbara. So we actually hired a Santa Barbara firm when we left, called PartnerWeb. And what they did for us, they were our corporate RIA, and a very, very good firm. And what they did for us was all of our billing, reporting, compliance, all of that. And that was a great move for us, because when we went independent as Rene Bruer Advisors, we did not set up our own RIA at the time. We just set up our DBA as Rene Bruer Advisors, and we used PartnerVest as our RIA. And so, because, you know, when you're transitioning your whole book of business and leaving your old employer, and we did it very fast, we didn't have time to file for an RIA and wait for the state of Florida, you know, SEC, you know, all of that. So, so we ended up working with PartnerVest for a while, and then over time, we started doing the dollars and cents calculations, and and started doing all the math and said, all right, can we do this in-house? And we figured that we very much could. And we could do it with some tremendous cost savings. And due to our non-disclosure agreements with PartnerVest and so on, I cannot tell you, what we were paying and so on. But I can tell you that for us to register as our own RIA, to hire advise on, to do our in-house compliance, to do all that, saves us a tremendous amount of money, and basically tax on maybe, I would say, 20 hours of additional work a year. And so money was not our primary motivator. Money is never my primary motivator at all. I will tell you, I do this because I really love it. Otherwise, there's other things I think I'd be doing for really for the money. Because otherwise, there's a lot of heartache in this field. I really do it because I love what I do for my clients and how I can help them. But we did it because we're able to really establish our own brand. When you have your own RIA, you're also able to directly make those relationships with the technology firms that you want, with the custodian, with all these other players, and truly make a brand for yourself and get that type of recognition. So, so as your firm grows, press outlets and stuff like that evaluate you, like Barron's or whoever, as they start saying, top 100 firms in the state of Florida or whatever. They're not looking at PartnerVest based out of Santa Barbara, where we were IARs. They're looking at Smith Brewer Advisors as our own firm. Does that make sense? So that was our motivator. Money, when we did it, the way we looked at it, we knew we were going to make our own RIA, but after a while, we're like, the money, yeah, that definitely played a part, but it was definitely not the primary motivator. One of the things that you'll find too is that when you make commitments, whoever they may be with, custodians, corporate RIAs, if you're using a third-party asset manager, which we used at one point, all these other relationships, it's very difficult when you have to tell them goodbye. And there's a lot of hurt feelings. There's a lot of, the regret, whatever the case may be, especially on the other side. But you have to figure out what is the best thing for your client and for you, especially if you're able to save your client money and your business money. And most of all, if you can improve the situation and get better technology, get better products, and so on and so forth. So you have to do it from the standpoint of making things better, not just cheaper, not just putting more money in your pocket. Let's see. Establishing expectations on both ends. When you're going through this process, like someone pointed out, you're going to be given a conversion timeline. That's always going to be longer. If someone tells you a month, expect 6 weeks. Just in your mind, be ready for that. And tell the other side, hey, this is what we expect of our relationship, and equally ask them, what do they expect of you? Don't make it one-sided. What do they expect of you? and hear them out. You know, I think that's just good business. During your transition, you want training calls, movement of current data, implementation and use of data. Be ready for mistakes. It's a fact of business. Happens all the time. And either you got to own up to them, or the other side has to own up to them, and just be ready to deal with them. What key is, how do you deal with it? So like I said, you know, if you've chosen a partner, and that's why it's so important, because these things are going to come up, good, bad, and otherwise. If you have a partner, not a vendor, it's going to be worth the transition and worth the move. So, you know, that's it. That's it for me. Cindy told me I had an hour. I think I'm 7 minutes over, 5 minutes over or something. But I hope I didn't run my mouth too long.
Oh, definitely not, because I can always add some of the things that if I don't have time to say, I can put it in the discussion board or whatever. And so everything you said was totally worth it. Before you go, I would love to hear if anybody has any questions or anything that they want to talk about with you from their experience too. And,
yeah.
So if you do, go ahead and raise your hand.
Oh, hey, I like Keith's comment here. Re-engineering the industry, lose the wirehouses, broker-dealers, of customer-centric service from firms like ours and yours. That's awesome. You know, I agree. So, you know, I think there's a lot of good people out there, you know, whose hearts and minds are in the right place, but they may be in the wrong place. They may be working in the wrong place. They just need to get freed of it. But I get James. You have a question?
Yeah, no, I was just taking a look at your website now. I saw the link to Empower. Is that the eMoney Pro on your website?
No. Oh, no.
And the reason.
Okay. So yeah,
and the reason I'm going to say that is one of the things that I really think our industry needs to do is, as we see robo-advisors start to pick up steam, is provide clients almost with kind of a sandbox or a way to log in and do their investments and maybe be able to trade some accounts on their own. I think if you're allowing your clients to do that, you're providing that service, I think it's kind of ahead of it, and et cetera. We really appreciate the service.
Oh, sure. Okay. I missed your question. Did you say eMoney Pro? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So Empower. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So that was one of those things that we did based out of a conviction. You know, the question was, you know, did we do it out of money? And rightfully so. You need to ask that question. I like, you know, those straightforward, pointed questions, because those are the types of questions that you find out where the person's heart is. You know, when we went on our own, well, my business partner and I, you know, saved up a couple of bucks here and there, but nowhere near enough to start a business. So one of the things that we did was we took out a, you know, good old SBA 7A loan through Live Oak Bank, which does a lot of work with our industry. And so we did that to meet the, you know, to buy furniture, buy computers, you know, basically to really start up your business, meet the first quarter's payroll, because we didn't know how much business we were going to move, and we had staff that we had to pay and so on. Well, after a couple of months, one of the first things that we did, because we were all convicted on our team, this is our conviction, was that we believed that robo-advisors were going to add a lot of value to the customer or to the client experience. Now, in our belief is that if you're working with Smith Brewer Advisors, our company, as advisors one-on-one, if you're coming to us needing that expertise, me as MBA, CFP, my partner who also teaches, he has an MA, and others, is that you're, for our business to make sense and for our whole concepts and profitability, you have to have $250,000 in investable assets. And so for years, we were always, when we would meet with clients, in our whole institution, it was like, well, just front load them. If it's a small account, front load them into a mutual fund and make some money, do the trade, and make them go away. I'm like, no, that's just the wrong thing to do. So what we did was we set up a relationship with the local Scottrade office, and we just got to know the branch manager and would send people and say, look, we recommend you get an allocation fund, no load, get some index funds, kind of walk them through it, tell them to go see the Scottrade person, and all they would do is just open up an account, buy and hold, and that was it. And so we did that for years and years because we just didn't feel right opening accounts and and not providing service. And so when the robos started to come around a couple of years ago, of course our old bank didn't want anything to do with that. When we went on our own, that was one of the first things we wanted to do. And we hardly had any money. None. But knowing that the robos were really coming around, we actually took from our loan. We took $20,000 and said, look, now is as good a time as any, and private labeled our own robo, and we call it Empower Investments, and spent it all on the website. And we have partnered with Betterment Institutional as the back, as the software, as the engine basically to Empower. So I hope that makes sense.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Rene? Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
I won't take up too much time in case somebody else had a question, but I'm in New York and new to the financial field. I think there's a few of us at COU that are hoping to make a transition. You seem to have a very entrepreneurial spirit, which I actually find true for most service members. They go off and they have that great leadership quality, and they go up and start their own businesses. So kudos to you for getting that going. My question really is, what advice do you have for somebody that's well positioned, with a company, making good salary, benefits, that sort of thing, but is looking to transition into the financial services business, knowing that first few years is going to be incredibly tough financially. I'm in the CFP program here at COU, and 5 classes away from finishing. So, do you have any guidance or any personal experience that you might be able to share with us on transitioning from, mid-career to financial advisement?
Absolutely. First of all, you're in a great brand right now. Cal Lutheran, CFP, it doesn't get any better than that for financial services. If your heart is in helping people and making a direct impact on people's lives, this is one of the best fields to be in my opinion. As close as it gets to this is either medicine or some other form of direct help. I love this field because not only do I get to help someone one-on-one, but I also love the entrepreneurial and business side of it. So you got to go the CFP route. Take that CFP, get it done with. I told Cindy that one thing I don't recommend is don't do what I did. I finished in May of 11, and then I took the CFP exam in July of 11. I had to take it again in November of 11. I missed it by a couple of questions, literally by like 4 questions. So I was so exhausted, so give yourself a little break. But I would tell you that the world has changed in financial planning a lot. And if you're going to walk away with an advanced degree and a CFP, the next step you have to take is find a really good firm. And yes, the compensation model still seems to be that it's, you know, sink or swim, but nowhere what it was before. And we used to talk about, well, you know, Merrill Lynch used to, oh yeah, and someone said, by the way, police and fire, absolutely, military, all that, absolutely. But anyway, getting back to, you know, Merrill Lynch used to have great, you know, training programs and so on, but everything in our industry was just focused on sell, 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 front load, trade, 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 you know, make your quarter, you know, I mean, that was just stuffed down our throats for years and years and years. Make your month, make your month, make your month. And that really pitted you against the client. An RIA firm, a really good RIA firm, is looking, and good RIA firms are looking for talent. They have plenty of clients, they have good revenues, and they're looking for the right talent. What I have discovered is RIA firms, the ones that are growing especially, and the ones who have enough revenue and need people to service their books of business, they're having a hard time finding talent because they're, and I hope no one takes this the wrong way, there is a dichotomy of cultures between RIA firms and wirehouse cultures. And not to say that someone from wirehouse won't fit into an RIA. That's not necessarily the case, but on an overall basis, that seems to be the trend, you know. And so, if you're coming as a clean slate, I think that would be attractive to a good firm, and you may be able to find, you know, a good starting point and a decent salary and so on, and then be able to build up from that point. Does that answer your question? You know, Raymond James is still broker-dealer wirehouses. Raymond James, there are some Raymond James independents out there, but they're still broker-dealer affiliated. They're not pure RIA. Then you have Raymond James Associates that is very much wirehouse. So you have to be careful. Raymond James is a good company, but you have to be careful of which one that you're working with. You know, you just have to find out in your area or where you're willing to work who's registered and how. Okay, yeah. There you go. Yeah, our Raymond James independent firm. Exactly. Some of the banks. Yeah, so be careful with the bank. You know, I came from a bank. Some banks do it the right way, and some do it the wrong way. I have a friend who's at Wells Fargo. We work together. We're very, very close friends. He's here in Tallahassee. Wells Fargo Advisors is a lot of fee-based work, which is very good. But it's still, you know, a wirehouse type of mentality. I think it's very difficult to just walk in there and without a book of business. They're still in the mindset of recruiting from a Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley. That all those big firms kind of try and recruit from one another and try and give you bonuses and stuff like that. Your Raymond James independents, your RIAs and stuff like that, they're more keen on finding someone that's coming either new to the business or coming from the independent world. But if you're looking at a bank, you really have to be careful because they will predominantly, like a true bank brokerage, they will own those clients, and so that's happening now at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, that they give those referrals. Prudential, that firm has changed a lot over the years. I'm not very familiar with it. Ameriprise, like I said, so much is changing with the fiduciary rule. I'm not very familiar with Ameriprise. And of course, I know who it is, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I would tell you, find out who the leaders are in your area and what they have to offer. But, and especially if there's one thing that you might want to look for is if you can buy someone's book of business. If you have the financial capability to do it, and if that firm is willing to help you finance that purchase or not, especially as a CFP and someone's MBA, because there's just not a lot of people entering the business, and they don't want to lose it to a competitor. So that is, are you asking about purchases? Is that happening often? Yeah. People have to sell their book of business. And if you're in a Raymond James type of setting, if you are in LPL, if you are in Ameriprise, stuff like that, they traditionally will, of course, advertise it in their network first and will let people know. But yeah, I mean, people need to retire. And if it's a solo shop and there's no successor, the word has to get around and they have to find a suitor. And if no one's willing to come in and take over that book of business, they have to find something to do with it. Otherwise, it's going to leave their network. And yeah, I mean, the issue that some independents will have is that, and this has happened, because you see it on some of these forums where, especially if they're using an independent broker-dealer like LPL or so on, the business owner will say, look, I'm looking to leave the business in the next 2-3 years, and I'm with such and such broker-dealer. I'm a hybrid RIA. Part of my business is broker-dealer, and I'm looking to see how much I can get bought out for. So, and it's not necessarily a hot entity, because what a lot of people, especially if they're truly honest about taking care of their clients, is they want the right fit for their clients. And if they don't like some of the people in their broker-dealer or in their region or whatever the case may be, they will buck the system and we'll go and look on the outside for a suitor.
I just want to add one thing about that. What I see happening too is succession planning. So an independent person might pull in somebody who they think will work as part of the succession plan. And they have them work with them for a while, get to know their clients, get in that, and then once they're ready to leave the business, they leave the business. And sometimes they leave the book of business with the person that they've spent time with for succession planning. I've seen that happen a few times with some of our students who have gone into a small independent place as part of the owner's partly looking at succession planning. And then also I've seen where some companies are buying up, or some small independents are buying up other independents. And so they're building their practice that way also, besides word of mouth and what they did before. And then they're bringing in young, new people to work with. So those are things I've seen just in our little area here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Cindy, because like for us, we don't have an acquisition target for us would be a firm our size or bigger. And it would have to be within a certain geographical region. Smaller, it's not an acquisition target. However, if I was a solo practitioner, if I was someone looking to enter the industry, I'd snatch up a $40 million book of business from a solo in a heartbeat. And because a lot of firms, small RIAs, mid-sized RIAs, have no interest in buying that book of business because it's frankly a pain for them to integrate that unless they specifically know that business owner or not. So that's what you're going to run into is size. If they're going to go through the hassle of an acquisition, it needs to be worth their while. It needs to be an exponential growth opportunity. So, that they don't, if you're going to go through that, it better be worthwhile. And Cindy's right. I mean, I have a friend who approached us about acquiring his practice, and we looked at it. I did not like the numbers, and it just didn't make sense for us, kind of how he had his business structured. The numbers also didn't make sense because we'd have to make a 4 or 5 hour drive every month, and the old Marine Corps saying the juice was not worth the squeeze. And we just had a very honest conversation. And I just told him, I said, look, you need to find someone locally that you want to train in your very specific way of doing financial planning and turn that book over to them. Well, and his comment was always, well, they need to bring a little something to the table as well. I said, no, you just need to pay them a little bit while you're training them, and a little bit would mean something meaningful, 50, 60 grand, and then they can buy them out and make a very, very substantial living.
A lot of these independents have put their heart and soul in building their practice. So they hate to see it just go anywhere. They've built relationships with their clients, and they want their clients taken care of. So bringing in somebody as part of their succession plan is really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because they're going to stay in that community, most likely. They're not leaving the area. They're going to run into their old clients, and they don't want to turn it over to someone that is incompetent or a liar. They want to turn it over to someone that has a good reputation and knows what they're doing. Because it's ultimately going to reflect on them, and they want to be able to walk into the grocery store and look at their old client in the eye and group it up, just have a good time. So, yeah.
Well, Rene, I want to thank you for taking the time tonight. I know you spent another extra half hour, and I appreciate you doing that for us today. I think the students, I'm sure, found this really valuable. I know I found it valuable myself, so I want to thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, thank you guys. And, at least the kids are asleep And you know, you guys keep at it, and you know, and if you have any questions, you know, Cindy knows how to get a hold of me. I'd love to be a resource for you guys. As our firm grows, you can send it to us. I don't know where your geography is, but at this point, if you want to move to Tallahassee,